Hi, you join me here today in Buitenplaats Doornburgh. This house behind me was part of an estate that was built in the 1600s and... Okay, it's important, but there's something a bit more important I need to show you. Today, we're actually here to visit this building here. This is the Emmaus Convent and it was built in 1964. Up until 2017, it hosted about 70 nuns, and in 2018, it became an exhibition area. Now it's home to a new form of life. However, this form of life is a little bit more robotic. What's more, these robots are in captivity. That's the name of the exhibit we're going to go see. Buitenplaats Doornburgh is located in Maarsen. Lying immediately north of the city of Utrecht, it might seem overshadowed by its neighbour, but this town still has plenty to offer. So, this exhibit actually caught my attention about a week before I actually went to go see it. You see, in Utrecht we have this magazine called Maarsen, which is fortnightly and is available to read either online or you can pick up a local copy from a bunch of public spaces, including the library. While I was flicking through an agenda of all the things that were going to happen in the next 2 months, I was greeted by a 2-page spread of a robot arm in chains next to the sentence, "I'm going to put a baby robot under a lamp. How will you feel when you see it?" To which I'd say the answer is concerned. However, it did catch my attention. It turns out this is the work of a local artist called Bram Ellens, who wants to open a dialogue between the role of robots in our society. Bram was inspired when he gave his son a robot car for his 7th birthday and it immediately crashed into a wall, which he likened to an animal trying to escape. Since July, he's turned this pity into a set of personalities for a group of robots, including a rap sheet of all the crimes that got them locked up in the first place. Let's give a breakdown of some of the robots they've caught. My favourite by far is Bassie. This jaunty little fellow is a greeter robot who, in the 2010s, worked in a hospital. However, he was made redundant after the software update caused him to become confused and gave him a stutter. He also can't differentiate between people and concrete pillars. As mistaken identity is harmless, he's allowed to wander the facility. After all, he's only human. Wait. Then there's Josephine. She escaped a factory which unfortunately led to her being homeless. It was a happy story in the end as she actually has a new job where she gets paid a grand total of $1 an hour. You can view her job contract on the wall as well as emails sent out trying to find her work. If you're into interpretive dance, which leans heavily on the interpretive side, she'll grace you with a performance if you go visit her. The award for the funniest name goes to the Hogans family, which is the only award they'll be winning, as they're massive pests. They travel in packs and hibernate for 2 months to recharge their batteries. Fun fact, these cars are actually the toy that inspired the entire exhibit. And then there's him, the Mad King. Picture this, you come across the convent's old chapel. As you take a peek around the corner, you hear the dragging of chains before... His MO is to imitate a faulty robot, and then once you've dropped your guard, he strikes. It took over 2 months to contain him, and now he's chained up all alone in a secluded part of the building. Of course, the rest of the estate has plenty to offer. The autumnal colours matched with the stillness that can only be found outside the city makes this the perfect spot to get away to for a day once the summer started to fade. The rest of the estate opens up to the Vecht River and can be walked along to reach the other park areas and museums. If you feel you need a little structure for your visit, they offer 3 tours. A park tour, a priory tour, and a grand tour of the entire area. Why do a tour when you can have a montage? So from what the website tells me, there used to be 4 estates on here and 3 of them were built by the same person, but 3 of them got knocked down. The one that's left was the one I showed right at the start. Because of that, the garden space increased from about 0.9 hectares to 9 hectares. And well, yeah, I mean, you can see what it's like. Apparently it was built in a thing called the English style, which I'm from the UK, and I've not really heard of this before. But apparently it's a sort of garden which is more reliant on nature rather than like having symmetrical like planters all in a row and stuff. Yeah, reminds me a bit of England. You see this quite a lot advertised in Dutch parks that is built in the English style. So I'm very impressed. So I've only actually ever been to Maarsen once before, and that was for a job interview which I didn't get. But honestly, I never had this great impression of Maarsen, but coming here today, my journey here from Utrecht was full of nature and beautiful buildings, and yeah, there are places like this, so obviously it's a lovely place to come to. And you know, it's a bit more out of the city. Oh, it's a different municipality, so it's out of the city, which is always nice to do on a weekend. And if you want to follow the same nature-filled journey I did, then you can bike along the Vecht River out of Utrecht city and into Maarsen. The trip will take you through a very pleasant route past castles and windmills, and while on a map it might seem a little indirect, for me it was only minutes slower than following the Amsterdamstraatweg, which is pretty much a straight line from start to finish. Maarsen lies on a major rail line and as such has direct trains from both Utrecht and Amsterdam. Once you get to the station you can use an OV bike and it's a 5-minute journey. And of course there are buses directly from Utrecht Centraal which will drop you off just down the road. I had a lovely time in Buitenplaats Doornburgh. Whether you're coming to visit an exhibit, take a walk around the grounds or coming for a bite to eat at the restaurant De Zusters, there is something for everyone and in all sorts of weather. I'd love to see what it looks like in the summer, so if you go there then be sure to leave me a comment. There'll be a more informal video coming out that shows off all the robots in the exhibit, as Robots in Captivity only runs till mid-January or so unless you're super quick, it may be gone before you can get there. As always, there are links in the description, and give that red button a press to get me to find something even crazier. So without further ado, bye!